Everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Creatives Podcast. I'm your co-host, Simone Campbell.
And I'm your co-host, Tevin Brown. And today, we have an actor, playwright, film festival curator. He has seen his productions that he wrote over 30 times across the country, and he's also the creative director of Almost Adults Productions. We have Aaron Leventman.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
So, Aaron, I guess kind of getting it started, I feel like we always like to start, I guess, at the beginning. So how long have you been doing theater for?
I won't say how many years because I'll age myself.
So like 20, right?
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
So I actually started acting when I was 8 years old. I was in a children's theater group in Boston where I grew up. Mm-hmm. I got the acting bug really early. I was in a music and arts theater camp, auditioned for a children's theater company, got cast, and was kind of off and running. So I acted in this company for a few years till I aged out of it. And then I grew up in Boston where there was all this great culture going on in the 70s and 80s. There, I just told you my age. And it was when the independent film movement was exploding, and particularly in Boston. And so I got exposed to all this great film, but also theater as well. And my parents would take me to all this great stuff. So I was really exposed to it at an early age. And when I was in high school, I realized that I had my own stories that I wanted to tell. So I was acting in high school plays a lot, and then I started writing plays in high school. And when I went to college at UC Santa Cruz for theater arts with a film emphasis, I was doing, making short films, I was acting in theater, I was acting in short films on campus. And then when I made my first film in college, it was supposed to be like a 10-minute film, but mine was like a 40-minute film. And it was an adaptation of a book that I really liked. And I went from there to going to Columbia Film School and to get my master's. I initially thought I wanted to be a film director because I love movies and I've been a big film buff my whole life. But I realized that my craft was really in writing. And that's really where I feel like I've excelled creatively in a lot of different things I've done, just in various places that I've lived. So I actually got a degree in screenwriting rather than directing, and I was in the film. I worked in different industry jobs in New York for several years after I got my master's degree, and I had a screenplay and a sitcom pilot that I wrote with some friends, and we had some interest in it and a couple other things we were doing. Didn't really happen at that time. I wasn't really crazy about working in the film industry and the kind of jobs I was doing in New York at that time. Ended up moving to Cape Cod, Massachusetts for love. Not a bad reason to move.
True.
And we're still together, so I guess it was a good decision. And in Cape Cod, I started writing plays again. And I had written plays in college and gotten some productions in college too. But when I went to Cape Cod, they had this amazing history of theater, and I started writing plays and getting plays produced, both in Cape Cod and around the country, and started acting again in theater. And really going back to my first love, which I hadn't really been going to because I was on this sort of film production writing track. Yeah. But it all applies. I mean, you can apply to everything that you've learned to whatever it is that you're working on at that time. So after I was in Provincetown for 4 years, my husband and I moved to Santa Fe. This was 20 years ago. And I started getting involved in the film industry and started auditioning for films and getting booked on some things. And then I started getting very involved in theater here and started continuing to write plays, getting them produced here and other places, and acting in plays and occasionally getting a commercial gig or a part in an independent movie, even a more major film, and signed with my current agent, Peter Yankee at Ferg and Mayer Worldwide, and I think that was 7 years ago. Nice. And I started a theater company here called Almost Adults Productions, and that was because I had there were certain kinds of material that I wasn't seeing getting produced locally that I wanted to do. And so a lot of it was my own work. So the initial production that we had was to get, was to do a program of my own plays that had a thematic content that was around young people growing up, coming of age. There was an LGBTQ focus. We had our first production. We got a ton of attention. We got a lot of press. The mayor came and declared LGBTQ Theater Day on our opening night.
Wow.
For the first time in history in Santa Fe. And so that was exciting. And since then, we've been doing short play programs, longer plays. And probably one of our biggest success that we had was during the quarantine. I started a Zoom play series where we were able to include talent not just in Santa Fe but all over the world. And we had our biggest audience for that, and we even got accepted into the South by Southwest virtual conference in their mentor program. So we got to be branded there. So I'm still, doing all these things at, at the kind of pace that works for me in conjunction with other things that I'm doing. And and then when I moved to Santa Fe, I meant to mention 20 years ago, my friend Sterling Zinsmeyer, that was a film producer, he was on the board of the Santa Fe Film Festival, and he said, we're opening up a year-round venue, which was called the Cinema Cafe, which was this place where you could go and watch movies and get stuff to eat and bring in, and the auditorium was all couches and lounge chairs.
Oh, nice.
But it was then called the Film Center. And he said, do you want to curate a weekly LGBTQ film series? And there was only one other weekly series like that in the country. So we did that together, and I got to learn about distribution, about submissions, how you curate for different communities, what that all means. And then I did that for about a year or two, and then I got a gig at the Sundance Film Festival doing theater logistics. So I left Santa Fe for 4 months, went up to Park City, and then came back and was working for a nonprofit called Bioneers, which is an environmental nonprofit, and I got hired to do a annual film series as part of their annual conference in Marin, California, which had a focus on environmental social justice films. And then from there, I got on to the somebody who knew me from that invited me to be the head of programming for the Santa Fe Film Festival. So I did that for about 6 or 8 years, I think. And then I also was the programmer for the AFMX premiere event film festival that's still going on strong. And I was, I think, involved in their first festival. And so I can talk to you about what I'm doing now, but I feel like I'm talking too much, so I should let
you
get a word. I can talk, so cut me off at any time.
No.
Yeah.
It's one of our favorite parts of the show.
It's true.
Just, listening.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed that, to start from age 8, and I think to hear, you've come so far, and I think I have this image in my head of just like this incredible expansion, and your work is just kind of like built upon itself and become like more vibrant and more expansive. So what fuels that creative fire? Like, you've never stopped creating in everything that you do.
I think if I didn't do it, I feel like I would not be who I am. Like I'd be somebody else. And what I guess what I like about what I've done is that I've done all these different things, and if I am not writing a play, I can curate a program where I'm helping other playwrights or other filmmakers. So, and I found that I really enjoy doing that. That's why I like doing curating, is that I like the experience of supporting other people's work. And, when I was working for the, local film festivals here, being able to bring filmmakers to Santa Fe and find audiences for their work. And I guess my point is that because I've done so many different things, I can always find that creative impulse in different aspects of what I'm doing. So if I'm not doing one thing, I can be doing something else, and it keeps it interesting. And doing creative work, it changes, and you're not always getting parts, or you're not always getting your plays accepted somewhere, your films into festivals. There's sometimes a lag. So I can do something else that is meaningful to me. And I think that's what's, as I get older, I think that's changed a lot. What's meaningful to me is very different than what it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think, finding meaningful work and finding communities within the work that I'm doing is really crucial. And, film festivals have their own communities. And I've met some amazing friends through all these experiences. And as you get older, you find that's kind of what's the most important, is the contacts you make. Not just professionally, but personally.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I love that. No, and I especially love how you kind of keep using the word community and like in anything that you were kind of like bringing up through your like rich history. And I think that's really important, like especially being like such a huge foundation of not only what it seems like drives your creative fire because of like all the people you meet and kind of like the stories you get to share that could help all these different people. And I know you're very strong with like the LGBTQ plus community and all of these things in your work. And I love that. And I think especially like, I guess, kind of honing in on the film festival curating, because I think that's definitely like something that like a lot of younger people don't fully understand. I guess what kind of like can you tell us about that and like your steps into like how you handle like film festivals and everything?
Well, I think curating, the trick is that, of course, I want to show films that I'm interested in, but it's really knowing what the community wants to see. Otherwise, it would just be the Aaron Leventman Film Festival. But it's really, and you might get like one person, me, in the audience. So it's really knowing what I'm passionate about, but also what the community wants to see. And it's very different, like in Albuquerque than in Santa Fe or than in New York. So I think it's knowing what, and that can take time. I mean, that, you might, show some films that no one goes to or that isn't well received. Then you learn, okay, well, this is the kind of content that this community really wants to see. But I think, it's just advice to filmmakers or playwrights, or, it's the same with acting too. It's like doing sales, like you have to do a lot to get one. So if you're a filmmaker, you have to submit to a lot and your film will get in somewhere. But it's also knowing what kind of festival is right for your film. And so doing some research is important. And unfortunately, submission fees have gotten really expensive and you have to have a budget for it. It used to be like when I was starting doing this, $10, $20, $30. Now it's like $100 is standard or more. And some of these big festivals charge $200, $300 just to submit your film for a chance, for a chance at getting in. So, and also working any contacts you have. If you know someone that's working for a festival to put in a good word for you, it just gives that programmer a little, it makes your film rise from the pile that are getting submitted, and the competition has just gotten out of control for both plays and films because the technology's changed, and now it's much easier to make a film on your iPhone, edited on your computer. So more people are doing it now. True. And coming up with great stuff. So there's a lot, but that doesn't mean you should give up or not do it. It just means that it just might take you a little more time. But I think all the things I said, if you have contacts at festivals, knowing what festivals are going to be right for your particular work, and making sure you have a budget to pay for. But what happens is once your film gets into some festivals, then other people know about it and they're going to come after you. So it's not just like blind submissions. Like one of the festivals I work for now, it's all curated. We do get submissions, but most of the films I have to go and look and see what's being shown at other festivals. So once your festival gets out there, programmers are going to be coming to you, and so that's a great position to be in once you get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm just so curious what it's like being in that energy, both as a curator, but also as an audience member and, watching everything kind of, explode, especially with the surge in technology.
Yeah, I mean, festivals have changed a lot, and I think because a lot of festivals now are hybrid, that's also changed the audiences. Like Sundance is partly hybrid now, so it's changed the numbers that are going in person. I think I think the advantage is that more people can see your films, because the people that don't have accessibility to attend these festivals can watch it online. But I think we don't want to lose that in-person audience experience. And the festival I work for now, which I can talk about in a minute, is purely virtual, and it's great because anyone can watch it. But what I loved about working for the festivals locally is bringing filmmakers to the festival and being able to experience with them seeing their film in front of an audience, sometimes for the first time. And that's really exciting, and you can't duplicate that online. Yeah. A little bit, but not in the same way.
Yeah, it's not the same. It just feels different, I guess. It's I kind of I get lost in your words, I'll be honest.
Oh,
Like,
sorry. I have that effect on people.
No, he's enchanted. We're both enchanted.
Oh, okay. I like that.
No, I kind of love that, and I think I'm so grateful to have you here to like ask, I guess, such amazing questions, and you also here to answer them so amazingly. Because
I'll try.
I think you're not trying.
Don't be modest.
I guess kind of honing in on what you said you would kind of bring up, because like, my goodness, it seems like you do so much. And so I guess with another big kind of piece of like all of your work, Almost Adults Productions. So how did that get started, and kind of what is it all about?
Well, it started when it was during the economic down, it was actually after that, but I was, laid off from my job. I was trying to get work. I was thinking, do we want to live on the East Coast? Do we want to stay in New Mexico? What opportunities are here that could sustain me throughout the years? So I decided to stay here and got a job back in Santa Fe after I hadn't worked in over a year. And I said, well, if we're going to stay in Santa Fe, I want to do something really cool. So that was when I contacted some friends of mine that had experience in fundraising and said, I want to do this theater production, the one that I mentioned before. And I have a group of plays that I think are thematically related that, doing a short play program or short film program of shorts, it's important to connect them thematically, because then people have a sense of what they're going to see, what the content's going to be. So I started doing this theater production and got a ton of support. And there's so many great talent in Santa Fe that helped me with it. So that was really it. It was really that I wanted to create content that I wasn't seeing being done in Santa Fe. And that was really the impetus for it. Then I had all these other plays that I didn't write, but that I wanted to produce and occasionally acted in. And so I just kept it going throughout the years. And then, entering the virtual world, finding that theater can be done virtually. It's obviously, again, not the same experience as live, but when we did that series for a year on Zoom, it was really cool, because I met all kinds of different talent that I wouldn't have had we just stayed locally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting to connect to South by Southwest was great too. And they did their conference virtually, and I think it was 2021, and they really knew how to do it right. It was a great virtual, and I actually was able to meet people because you could make appointments. They had like a social platform like Facebook for attendees of South by Southwest, and you could just go on and see who was on there and send messages to people. And I got to talk to some like really cool, famous filmmakers that I never would have had to.
What a special opportunity.
I know, had I been at the conference, because they would have been, doing other things. So anyway, and we were on a different state then with the world and wanting to make sure we stayed in touch.
Definitely.
I think now we've gotten used to it a bit.
I'm curious where the name of your production company comes from. I feel like there's a story there.
Well, I kind of feel like I've never totally grown up.
I feel like few creatives have. That's part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's good, because you want to keep that young person's impulse. Because I think once you get older and a little jaded, I think your work can get a little bit stale. But I want to keep that silly 10-year-old boy in me that I remember into my work, and I try to do that. But I think, I think it's the sense that a lot of us are still on this path towards quote-unquote adulthood. What I mean by that is like discovering ourselves and finding who we are. So a lot of the plays that I've produced or written have been sort of like that. And I'm on that path personally. I'm trying to discover new, when you get older and you go through these different like losses, with parents and, dealing with aging, you kind of, your sense of what's important to you changes too. So that's kind of what Almost Adults is. It's the path of self-discovery that we're all on. It's a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. And it's so important to maintain that spark. I feel like so many people lose it, and they forget to maintain that sense of awe and wonder and infuse it into their work and every day. Yeah,
and I mean, I think I'm working on a play reading now that I have, high school kids that are in. It's the first time I've worked with them, and they have that.
Oh, I bet it's infectious.
It's infectious, and it's like I want that again. I want to go back to that, so I don't want to lose that.
No, absolutely. I guess the biggest question on my mind, having like kind of read your bio and getting to know you a bit, is obviously you've seen over 30 of your own written productions performed across the country. What is your writing process to be able to create so much?
Well, It's changed a lot. Like when I started writing plays, like when I was in college, they were generally really personal stuff I was going through with like, you know, unrequited love and that kind of stuff young people go through. Well, not just young people, but
especially strong then.
yeah, especially strong then, because it's kind of like this like do or die thing. Like, oh my God, if this person doesn't go out with these. So anyway, I was writing stuff around that. And then when I got older, I was really interested in looking at like the kind of absurdity of life and writing like absurdist comedies around that. And I did that for a while. And then as I got older, I was more wanting to write about things I had been through and also people that were close to me and the kind of challenges they were having in life and how that was affecting me. And also as you get older, you experience more challenges and your life changes. And I wanted to sort of more write about the personal than about the kind of crazy, you know, dystopian, absurdist comedies that I was writing earlier, because that was what was more meaningful to me. And I find that those plays I was having more success with getting produced because people were relating to them, because they say the more personal, the universal it can become. So I kind of, it's, you know, when I get ideas for things, it's a bit random. Like, I don't know if it's like a divine intervention that just kind of comes through me.
The light bulb.
I'm actually in a playwrights discussion group that meets every month online, and we were just talking about this yesterday. Why do some ideas come to being these great works, and other things just die in the first draft? And it's really like no one really knew.
Yeah.
It's kind of random. It's like, well, I think because the what I wanted to write about stayed with me through the creative process, and other times it just didn't. So it's a little bit random, and I get ideas from, you know, an article I read, or about, you know, something that's really personal, that's very autobiographical, but that I personalize. And really everything you write is autobiographical in some way, even if it's like a historic piece, because you're identifying with that character, and that's how you write about it, is that you find a way into it.
Well, fantastic. I hate to say, but we're going to slowly bring it to a close.
Okay.
Before we do so, though, where can people find your work?
You can go to my website, which is just my name, AaronLeventman.com.
Easy.
And Aaron is Aaron, and then my last name is Eventman with an L in front of it. So it's Aaron L. Eventman.
That's perfect.
And if you just type that in, you'll get to my website, and there's like, you know, video clips and photographs of my work and my resume, and there's also a way to reach me through that should you want to. So
Cool. Sounds good.
Aaron, thank you so much for
this
being
was
on
such
the
a
show.
pleasure.
Yeah,
It was
thank
so
you.
great to be a part of this amazing project you're doing.
We're so grateful to be here, too.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. Cool.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. If you're on YouTube, please, as I always say, like, comment, and subscribe. I know it's corny, but it really helps us spread the show, and it really helps us be able to bring more people on, and we have all of these amazing people with all of these amazing backgrounds, and we also get to see Simone more. So how is it not a win-win?
Stop. Okay.
I want to thank so much 519 Studios for letting us film here all the time and dealing with us all the time. I want to thank our amazing guests that we get to have on every week. I want to thank my amazing co-hosts and our amazing sponsors. And I want to thank you guys one final time. My name is Tevin Brown.
And my name's Simone Campbell.
And please have a good night.